Welcome to the Learn, Grow, Teach, Parent podcast. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm speaking with Brian Reedy. He is a 30-year veteran teacher. I'm excited about this interview. I've been wanting to have it for a little while. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You are by far one of the most unique teachers that I've met in this modern world. You bridge, I would consider, the ancient teaching world to the new and modern teaching world. And you've made an absolutely chef's kiss transition to modern teaching. I admire you a great deal. And why don't you tell the listeners just a tiny bit about what type of teacher you are and maybe a little bit about how you got started.
Well, I'm an art teacher. I got my start actually when I began graduate school. So I went to undergraduate, got my Bachelor of Fine Arts, moved to Miami, went to graduate school at University of Miami. And part of my scholarship required that I teach while in school. So um, I taught two courses while in graduate school, and I just found I had a natural aptitude for it. And they really liked me. I got a teaching award while I was in graduate school, and they kept me on as an adjunct for some years before I got into the public school system. But it was something that I guess you could say I came into somewhat by accident because, again, going to college for art, your original plan is that I'm going to be an artist, whatever shape or form that takes. It's just that when I did get the scholarship and it was a teaching one, I thought, okay, hey, let's see how this works, and it just something that really clicked with me immediately. I really enjoyed working with others. I enjoy the uh, feedback, the camaraderie. I like everything that goes with teaching. So it was something that I immediately fell in love with, and something that I also realized is not something that you can master quickly. There's a lot of variables when it comes to teaching. There's a lot of things that no matter how many books that you read on education can never really capture the small little nuances or irregularities that you would find in a classroom setting.
Do you think it was on purpose that the program was trying to create teachers, or did they see something in you? How did that work?
I think it was just that was the type of scholarship that they offered was, and I think it is a way for them to also kind of scout for talent themselves. Like, here's a way for, hey, look, we can start to um, prep these grad students and give them some experience while they're in school, and perhaps that might be a career objective for them. Maybe they want to be a professor or be a teacher themselves. But it is different. For example, if rather than going to an art education program, that's something that's very specific. If you want to go into art education, it's known that you are going to be a teacher, and yes, they do give you the opportunities to shadow other teachers, to do a little bit of student teaching on your while you're during your college courses. So just something that's a little bit different.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not unprecedented to want to create art teachers. I just think that coming from the exact type of education that you had, you went into it with the idea of becoming an artist. I guess everyone wants to become an artist, even if they're teachers, obviously. And I'm not downgrading that. They are artists, or it's filled with, the public school system is filled with excellent artists. But it is unique to find someone that can hit the mark so perfectly with their students. And I want to cut right to the chase and say that one of the things that's impressive about you is how you actually you're teaching art not just for the development of the talent of the student, but you're actually giving them a vocational lesson, because a lot of your students their work gets shown, and they sell artwork. Now that I've got to say, I've been around the art scene for a while, and I don't see that with every teacher. How did you come up with that?
Well, look, I have a very simple plan when I go about teaching, and that's to lead by example. So, aside from being a teacher, I am a successful artist, and it really helps enhance my curriculum by giving insight into the way some of the business aspects of being an artist works. So that's something that's actually taught in my class where I'm giving them either examples or methods, but also being very clear with them that there are many different paths, there are many different styles, techniques, and everything that I show them is the way that I've done things or things that have worked for me. And it's not something that's universal, and it's something that ultimately they have to find the path that's right for them. So, for example, to say you're going to be an artist is like to say you're going to be a musician. I mean, there are so many pies that you can put your fingers in. There are so many different avenues that you can follow. It's very hard to narrow that down into uh, a phrase or a lecture that would uh, cover all of those things. So the best that I could do is to give them an umbrella concept for, listen, this is how the art world works. I'll show you the path that I took and the things that work for me and the ups and downs that came with that. But I want you to be aware that there are other ways that you can do this as well. And what I like about and I admire and I respect about kids of this generation because like I said, I've been teaching a long time, and I've noticed something uh, that's very distinct about this generation is they seem very savvy. They seem very um, learned in the way that the world works. They're not looking for things to be handed to them. They're looking to earn their accomplishments, and they're also very self-motivated. So a lot of these kids, they're getting out there and they're finding these opportunities on their own. I might have given them a suggestion, but I might have maybe just slightly cracked the door open for them, but they're the ones walking through, and they're the ones who really take deserve the credit for their accomplishments.
Yeah, that's generous of you, and I think that you underestimate how much they your example sets for them. Because yes, this generation is very different. They are a bit more savvy when it comes to social media. They're a bit more savvy and open when it comes to interpersonal relationships. And that plays a lot in how people do business. When you understand people, you understand business. And if you're good at creating content and you're smart about finding your niche, then it's not inaccessible to be a successful artist in 2023. Because look, your success, I've seen what your stuff does online. You have a very strong following. You are a unique voice when it comes to the way that your art is represented. It's very niche. Not just the success that you've had is the genre that you picked, your style, extremely unique. I mean, that takes years to develop, and for your students to say, "I can do that," that's a gift, Brian, to be able to turn around and say, "Hey, you can do what I do," and they believe you. That's awesome. I think that's what's inspiring about you. Have you always been such a positive person?
Well, I hope so. I hope I have been. I've always been this way, like I said, um, yeah, I want to be as supportive. I want to be as encouraging as I can, and also be realistic. I also tell kids, okay, yes, I am successful. A lot of this did not happen overnight, and also never discount your ability to either rethink your strategy, reinvent yourself creatively, try new avenues. I myself have gone through changes. For years and years, I was a more of a traditional gallery artist, where that relationship is very simple. You get a gallery that represents you. They take care of all the business end of it. They take care of they provide the venue, they provide the marketing, and in exchange they get 50% of your earnings. So as much as I enjoyed that experience, over time I realized that it wasn't the best fit for me, and that perhaps I should explore ways that I could do this on my own. And this was during the inception of e-commerce. This is when um, apps like Etsy and all started coming about. And I thought, this looks like something that is worth investigating. And I tried it. And of course, it was not an overnight success. I set up an Etsy shop, really proud of, what the work I put up there. A week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks go by. Finally, I get a sale. I'm like, yes. And I look at it. It was from my dad. And I was like, no. Oh no, a pity purchase. But look, I was happy. From there, things started to build and build, and then start to snowball. And of course, when you factor in um, social media in ways that you can make an online presence, that really helps in for online sales as well. So these things work in tandem. And again, if I could get back to the kids, these kids, they do understand that social media is really the new resume. It's the new way of making connections and getting jobs and getting opportunities. So it's something that has been beneficial for all of us. All of us in the art world, and, and something that, say, for example, during the pandemic, that we actually thrived during that period, rather than suffered.
I noticed that's a trend with a lot of the really great teachers that I'm talking to is how they didn't see going online as, oh my goodness, this is going to be so horrible. Part of it is that people like yourself are so optimistic and also so savvy about online that you were able to extract from it, I think, a connection. Kids connect to. I think it's going to do more good than harm in the long run for certain kids. I'm not going to discount the ones who definitely will not thrive in that environment.
Right.
But online did have its benefits as well, and I think it's if we don't look at that and look at it realistically, then I think we're missing opportunities for kids. I want to just ask you one thing because the other thing I'm impressed at is the speed at which obviously you tell them, oh, this took a while for me to become successful. But then you turn around and your middle schoolers, your high schoolers are selling their work and they're
Well,
doing it at a decent price and a clip. I mean, there's nothing slow about that. Are you
okay.
shocked that that's happening?
Uh, well, okay, but yes, they are. Again, the reason why it took a little bit longer for myself is that I didn't have anyone giving me advice on these things, and I learned through a lot of trial and error. And now, if I can pass on to the kids, perhaps you might want to learn from some of the mistakes I did and avoid doing this or that, and that will help you to reach your goal much faster. And which, I see that they're able to do that. So it is something that um, it's really a marvel to behold that these kids are able to set their sights on a goal and accomplish what they set out to do in a short period of time. So they do formulate strategies that are viable and that are sustainable, and I really admire that. I use that word a lot in my class, strategy, because yes, there's a ton of talent out there. I mean, it's the world is filled with talent, and but I have to also uh, realize a truth that as much as I like what I do, I know that there's a lot of other people out there who can do it just as well, maybe possibly do it better. Um, and the best way for me to succeed is to formulate a strategy where I'm going to market myself in the best way possible and also in a way that still feels honest, that doesn't feel like that I'm not being true to myself or that I'm having to compromise, excessively. Again, that's another word that I have to bring up with kids is when you do get out there in the field and you start working with others, it's just something that comes with the territory is compromising. You can't always get exactly what you want. You can't always see your vision down to every little detail. If you're working in film, if you're working in music, if you're working in any of the arts, you're and anytime that you're going to have to work with other people, you will have to compromise at times. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to do things exactly as you like all the time, and that's part of the experience. And I could argue a good part of the experience. I mean, it kind of takes some of the hubris away from what we do as artists. Like, hey, you know what? This isn't what I had in mind, but because of their suggestions, it became a better piece or it became a better product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you find that here's what I'm listening, and what I actually see you're confirming for me is that you're a mentor, and in that mentorship, your life experience paves a way. However, it allows for them to become to have personal experience brought into the scene. Now, when you do that, you have to have a certain amount of interpersonal play, both in marketing and then also these compromises you're talking about. That's just really finding a way to get what you want without compromising your position, but listening to others. Listening to someone else is a skill. All of the skills that you're building are helpful to develop this new generation of talent. I was looking at art and at the AP classes around our AP art classes at a high school level. I was looking at a lot of these children. I was struck by how talented they are. I mean, I remember my art class. Uh, I graduated high school in 1982, and we used to have the youth fair, and that's when you would show your artwork, right? And I see that some of that stuff, and I mean that's crayons and stick figures compared to the amazing artwork that some of these kids are doing, both digitally and otherwise. Do you find now that your magnet is filled with more talent?
Yeah, and again, if you're talking about a lot of this is a generational thing. Again, I also went to high school in the 80s, and it was just a different time back then. Where I lived, we didn't have magnet schools. That didn't exist. Um, our art class really consisted of, here, kid, here's some crayons or some paints, and you just get to work. And look, you can argue there is some validity to that type. It's not really necessarily laissez-faire teaching, but it is learning through your own processes, learning through your own mistakes. It's just that when you're in an advanced program like this, I mean, this is when you think of a magnet school like the one that I teach at, it's really like college part one because you're getting specific instruction. You're in an environment that fosters creativity, and you're really surrounded by like minded people. And it's also a place where a lot of the responsibility is shouldered upon you. And by doing so, you're developing these skills that I didn't learn until I got to college. In fact, even in college, I struggled with a lot of those concepts. So, this is something where I see a decided difference between the way that I went to school and the type of education these kids are getting.
I mean, clearly, I was never an advocate of pushing down responsibility too soon. I wasn't a big fan of AP classes in general or the college experience creeping into high school. I often felt that in the wrong hands, when it wasn't done correctly, it was so damaging to children. But over and over, I keep meeting people like you. I keep meeting teachers that take it so seriously and understand it so well that it's like a judo flip. You're taking something that could be so negative and you're turning it into such a big positive that I know I feel hopeful for this next generation as I do this podcast more and more. I find that I had a misconception. I felt that there were less teachers like you, and what I'm finding is that there's more teachers like you. I'm talking with teachers that are 20, 25, 30 years experience, and they're not slowing down. How do you keep your energy up? I know you got like a young baby at home.
Oh, yeah. Hey, look, to me, the juice comes from seeing what these kids are capable of doing. I mean, it's really a symbiotic relationship with these kids. Yeah, I'm coming in, I'm providing them with the knowledge that I have, but witnessing what they take and do with it on their own is something that's inspiring to me. I can't wait to get back in the studio and start working for myself, because it's something that's really awe-inspiring that these kids at such a young age are able to accomplish so much and to be so incredibly creative. But I do want to stress this, as much as I do talk a lot about work ethic, as much as I talk about responsibility and strategy, there's another word that I use maybe more often than anything else, and that's fun. I want them to enjoy what they're doing. I don't want them to be so overwhelmed at such a young age that they're going to end up with an ulcer before they graduate high school. That's not, it's not healthy, and it's not beneficial for anybody. I don't want to. I don't think any child should be forced down a path that's not going to be natural to them. Of course, we also have to understand at the end of the day that these are children, and they deserve to have, or they have the right to change their minds. If they think, what, okay, yeah, I've been doing art now since I was in elementary school. I, I just, at this point, I feel like it's not for me. I would like to pursue something else. Why would I ever want to convince a child otherwise? Irregardless of their talent or their abilities. I think at the end of the day, uh, it's a child's choice what they want to do with their life, or a combination of a child and a parent. I think we as teachers, we can be mediators, we can give advice, but I think we need to uh, all be very careful the type of wordage that we use when we're with kids, because they are young minds, they are very impressionable, which is why you leave topics like politics and things that are possibly controversial out of the classroom as much as possible, because you don't want to shape or mold them in the ways of your beliefs when these things are really up to them. That these are things that they need to find their own path on. So, as I mentioned before, yes, I do have a curriculum that does stress professionalism and finding a good path that's going to work well for you. But at the bottom line is, I feel like they should be having fun. They should be enjoying what they're doing, um, and let that be their motivation, that they're having fun with their work.
I mean, you're proving my point. Your sensitivity and your openness speaks to children of this generation. They respond to that, and it's sincere. I mean, your honesty. You're extremely sincere about what you're doing, and the truth is that your secret sauce, okay, your secret formula that I seem to be unraveling here for myself is that you are extremely, you're passing along wisdom that translates. Therefore, it doesn't matter if they stay with art, they have range. They're capable of going into something else, and they'll still bring a work ethic, a sense of responsibility, an understanding of interhuman, interpersonal relationships, maybe some business savvy, but certainly they'll remember that this was a good time and that it's possible to work hard and have fun. And that's been lost on a generation. That, I mean, you're bringing it back. You're bringing it back for these kids.
Well, not just me. We all are. I think all of us are. I look around and I see what these other teachers are doing, and it's terrific. It's inspiring. It also makes me realize that it doesn't matter. I've been teaching 30 years. I can't rest on my laurels. I have to always be thinking of uh, new lessons, new strategies, new ways of implementing these things in classes, and know that your classroom dynamic is ever changing. You're never going to get the same group twice. You're always going to have uh, a mixed bunch, and you're always going to have to understand that these kids need to be treated as individuals. The days of doing just the lecturing everybody as a group, I think is over. It has to be something where you're focused more on individual needs rather than as a group. So by doing so, you have to have a very fluid curriculum, one that in art can still cover the basics of drawing and design skills, which of course why we're here. We want to learn these skills, but allows for individual creative expression. So it can be a juggling act. And I will admit that, I there's times that I go home and I realize, what, if only I would have done this or would have done that. But rather than beating myself up over it, I'll just keep that in mind the next time. I'll come in and I'll realize, hey, you know what? Let me try it this way and see what works. And it's not about throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's about just knowing that there are so many different methods to pedagogy, and how are you going to find the way that, again, addresses the individual rather than seeing your group as one, faceless mass of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of tutoring. I'm a fan of, yeah, I'm teaching a class of 30 or something, but I'm always looking at the individual and what I can bring individually. This is another one of your secret sauces, is that you're capable of taking a single student and saying, well, I'm going to focus on the student. And it doesn't feel like you're neglecting the others. It just feels like, hey, this is natural. Everyone's an individual. And that's a rare gift. That's not common or capable. But I'm going to peel back one more thing. I know you're limited in time, and I'm just
Okay,
so interested in this conversation.
sure, of
Let me,
course.
I want to talk about parents. Look, you just mentioned in a very respectful way how the parent is part of the equation. And over 30 years, you've seen a lot of parents. It's been a thing where, what is your take about parents and this generation that you're? What's the relationship there, and how do you feel about the parents?
Okay, I'm very blessed that when we're at a school like this, it's almost inherent that you have supportive parents. Otherwise, why would they send their child to a magnet program if they weren't supportive of their child's endeavors? So there's really no um, strife between the teacher and parent here. It's really about just keeping an open line of communication and making sure that their child is comfortable, that they're getting the most out of the situation, and that um, they are making plans for the future, that they are thinking about, and it's never too soon. This is a 6 through 12 center. They come in at sixth grade, they're coming right out of elementary school.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
really not too soon to at least mention to them, you know what? You're coming to a school where if you choose to stay all the way up through the end of your high school experience, you will have a skill set that will be unmatched because you will have had the time and the opportunity to build a portfolio that's going to be reflective of your individual techniques, your abilities, and more importantly, your creativity. So I think that's something that really sets these kids off, not just this school, but this generation, is that we do have parents that are very supportive of their child's wants and needs, and they want them to succeed as well, and they want them to be happy. We're all in the same boat together. And of course, it's something that we realize that these things take time, they don't happen overnight, and it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of flexibility. Requires compromise at times. So these are all different factors that we weigh in and absorb and then process, and then in the end result, try to come up with the best possible learning environment for these kids.
Hey, that's well said. I mean, clearly, giving them a powerful launch pad, the fact that if they stick to it, that they will receive close to, what do you say, 6 through 12? Is that 6 years? 6 years of support, of
7 years.
seven years of really getting backed up to what they believe in. And if you have that flexibility, this is what I love about this school too. Is we researched a lot of magnets before my daughter Annabella went to Moss, and
Right.
one of the things we noticed was this flexibility of understanding that children need to explore different avenues. In fact, Annabella is in the orchestra magnet, yet she took your class, your art class,
Hmm.
uh, and that's pretty unique. That magnet school will allow kids to explore in that fashion. Of course, it's to her benefit, not just meeting you, but she's always been a terrific little artist and always wanted to keep more than one thing in her sights. And
Right.
as you guys have been encouraging that, we're ever thankful as parents that she's had a wonderful, and she didn't get there in middle school, so the last 4 years for her have been wonderful. I want to ask you one last question. I do this a lot. One of the
Sure.
things that I'm interested in is male teachers. I think that we don't have enough men teaching. Not nowadays. You don't have that problem over there. There's a lot of male teachers at Miami Art Studio. Is that on purpose? Is there something special about that school that draws more men to teach there?
I truth be told, I haven't really noticed that because I've always taught at magnet schools. So before here, I taught at South Dade High School, and there were plenty of male teachers there. Before that, I did teach at Moton Elementary, which is a magnet elementary school. And yes, they did have more female teachers, but I always thought that that was more of a symptom of elementary school in general. That you would traditionally find more female teachers for elementary. But I don't, you know, I don't even know if gender is a factor anymore. I think it's something where it is the it doesn't it certainly has no effect over teaching ability. I think gender is a non-issue. It's and in fact, even the ratio of male to female teachers to me is really irrelevant. I don't think you have to balance it out. If you have more of one than the other, that's fine. As long as the kids are getting a quality education, it's fine.
Well, I certainly appreciate your insight in that. I mean, for me, it's a matter that I do think there's a slight difference between male and female sensibilities when it comes to just generally giving advice, or just generally looking at what's going to happen after high school. In some cases, college seems to be the only answer. In other cases, there's so many other avenues that are presenting themselves that I feel that when we were in school, certainly college wasn't the only thing. You could do a lot of other stuff and still provide a pretty decent life for yourself. But
Right.
today, you have to have a college idea and path. It's clear. It doesn't matter when they get there. Some boys get there later than some girls get there earlier, but I do think the kids are going that route, which may be why so many high schools have college sensibilities. It's almost like everyone senses that we need a 13 and 14 grade
Yeah. Oh,
to
yeah.
launch.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, oh, you feel it, right? Hey, maybe we need to expand high school by 2 years so that everyone's now it's a little more equal. 12th grade education in the 80s and 90s might be equivalent to a 14-year education, grade 14 education. I'm not sure, but in the end, this conversation has been fantastic for me because I find you to be a very unique teacher, a very, very sensitive person that, I mean, you work so well with kids, and I admire that greatly. I hope that you've enjoyed this talk.
I have very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I do too. I know that you said you want to leave a little early. You have some stuff to do, but I'm going to call this a mini episode when I publish it because
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I want a part two. Let's sit down and
Okay.
talk a
We'll
little
work
bit
out a
more.
part two. Of course. I'd be happy to. Happy to come back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to give you a little update. I know that just for you to understand, Annabella, she made that block print for uh, the author that
Oh,
was the
yes.
author of her
Uh-huh.
book club. She wrote
Right.
the book Thistlefoot, and
Right.
she did that block print. And I know that the artist was so impressed by it that she's pushing Annabella's artwork on her website, and she's already sold 2 pieces from
Wow.
that.
All right.
And so, I mean, personally, you're helping me out a little bit because her college fund or maybe some of these high school expenses
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
picked up. But I'm talking from experience when I say that your influence is positive for these children. My hat off to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. A pleasure having me on your show. And of course, let's do part two.
Absolutely. Drive safely, be
I will.
well. My best to your family, especially that your baby Jade, who I think is so spectacular. I had the
Thank
pleasure
you.
of teaching her for a short while, and I
Yes,
wish I could
yes,
do it again.
that was terrific. All right, thank you again. Thank you
Take
again.
care.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
bye bye.